Today is making area for a garden for my wife. Our entire yard is completely on slope. There are no real flat areas, and then this is also the best area. You can see the stakes here going here based on how the sun comes up and goes down and allowing maximum sun to be on the garden. I am going to use my trusty Kubota BX23S to get this accomplished, and basically I'm just going to dig this out, transfer the dirt somewhere else. I'm not sure if this is going to be like a permanent garden area or not. She may decide based off the outcome of what the garden does that it's not a good spot or it's the perfect spot, but we won't know until after the planting season. This is what it looks like after 2 days of work. So it's all been leveled out except down here on the end past where the stakes are. That I have to be built up a little bit just to make it flat like the rest of it. And then over here I've got 4 holes dug, and they're all 35.5 inches down. And then I'm going to use those posts right there to do the upright post going across. Total distance is 15 feet all the way across. And then these boards over here will be used to go across the back side, and then boards will also be put across the front sides. It will also be 6 to 7 inches above this upper portion of the yard. Over here is the high point, and then this goes down to the low end. So the idea is, by building this, if you want to call it a retaining wall, it's basically just to prevent erosion going into the garden, because we do get a lot of rain here and sometimes heavy rain. But by building this wall and then backfilling it on that side, then when it rains, the rain will come down the hill this way. But then because that side is higher than this side, the rain will run down this way and go down the yard. It won't be so bad during the months that the grass grows, but when all this grass dies during the winter, it can get pretty messy because it's pretty much dirt, and there's a lot of erosion during the winter months here. There used to be a bunch of black walnut trees in our yard. Those were all cut down. Now, unfortunately, because the stumps were removed, but a lot of the roots are still in the ground. So in order to do this, a lot of roots had to be dug up and cut. So you can see them all along this wall here. Had to dig them out, dig around them, use a chainsaw, cut them back, and this is the result of all the roots that had to be dug up. These are the posts that I'm going to use for the retaining wall on the garden. And these are old posts that were on the deck of an old cabin that was torn down. So I do have to remove some nails. They're all of different sizes. They're 6x6s. Some of them have cuts in different spots, like this one that I just finished. It's got about 1.5 inches slab cut off of it. Length that I need is 35.5 inches, but what I'm doing is cutting these to 37.5, and then what I'm doing is a 30-degree cut 1 inch in from the end of the post, which leaves about 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches square on the top. And this will just help with water runoff, because if I had left it completely flat, the wood would probably rot a lot quicker. Get this spar urethane that I'm going to put on the ends of all these posts. This is treated wood, but I don't know how old it is, and I'm guessing it's pretty old because it was on a cabin that was built in the 30s, but the deck may have been built many years later. Since I did cut it, doesn't necessarily mean that this is treated at all, so I'm going to put the spar urethane on there just to offer it a little bit of protection, and I'll also put it down at the bottom just to prevent rot. All of these boards, these are 2-inch by 8 by 8, and these were actually floor joists in an old cabin. So you can see all these nails, and those were for the floorboards, and all those down there. So one side has lots and lots of nails, so rather than I mean, these floor joists are going from being in a cabin to being repurposed for a garden retainer wall, so it's not like I have to take the nails out, so I'm just pounding them in. As you just saw, I laid this wall back in here, and the original reason why, once I started building it, I had to basically support the top and then put some boards across the bottom just to keep it all together. And then I had to move it up to that retaining wall up there to give myself a flat surface, because this thing was completely bowed every which way, because most of this wood is all repurposed wood, so it's bowed, it's warped, it's twisted. So putting it up on that other retaining wall allowed me to flatten it out. And then also, while I had it up there, I actually released some of the boards just to release some of the tension, because I think it kind of pulled itself into being bowed, and it was bowed like going like this. Finished putting it all back together last night. Put these 4x4 uprights in position on this end. 2 more will go down, one will go there, and one will go over there. The nice thing is I was able to use the tractor by myself to lift this, put it sort of in position. And I think I mentioned previously that these posts, the holes were set to 35.5 inches deep, and the ground was tamped underneath or at the bottom of the holes, so that the post would be 35.5 inches down. But I actually ended up adding 2 more inches to the 35.5 just because I wanted these tapered tops to prevent rain from sitting on top. And the nice thing is when I brought this over here and put it in place, you can see that it is pretty close to level. I have to make some adjustments because some dirt did fall in the hole, but that's pretty good that it's pretty close to level. There's two 60-pound bags of cement in that post, or for that post, and then I'll build dirt up on that as well. Here we are again. This is day 5 or 6. Here's where we're at now. Got the wall, or retaining wall, completed with these posts here that are 8 feet tall right now. That one, and then there's that one and the one over there. These are set to 6 foot high above ground level, and these are higher. They may be cut down. I was able to put these higher because they're actually attached to the retaining wall and not so much in the ground. The ground, or the retaining wall, is supported by concrete. I believe it was 2 bags on each one of these upright posts. So each one of those has about 2 bags of concrete. And the posts go about 18 inches below ground. And this thing is pretty sturdy. Doesn't really move. And this is good. We did take the grass that came from this area and patched it on this back side. Some it'll eventually fill in, and some of the dirt spots are there's actually grass underneath them, so the grass will grow through. Still needs some more cleanup, but it's getting there. Got some roots from old trees that need to be cut out of here to fix this line along this side. And then this side's pretty close. 2 bags of concrete poured for this post and the other post over there. And it's been sitting since yesterday. And there was a threat of thunderstorms that, well, they were actually right next to us and then went by, but cleaned everything up just to find out that it skirted right past us. So we didn't get everything done. All this over here will be cleaned up, and this end of the garden area has to be built up some, because as we were working and going up and down right here with the tractor, it kind of, well, it compacted it, which is a good thing, but now we got to build it back up so that the garden area stays somewhat flat with a slope coming down this way. And as previously noted, our yard is pretty sloped. Update on the new garden area. As you can see, a lot of work's been done. I think today is day 8 or 9 or 9 or 10, I'm not sure. There's been some breaks here and there due to weather, and it's getting pretty hot. And of course, this garden area, for the purpose of being a garden, all the work to build the garden has to be built in the sun, so it's been pretty hot and almost no shade. All of the posts have been put in. These posts right here with the black stripes on them, those all came from a neighbor who basically picked them up, and I think they had pipes on them. So, and I think they're a poplar. It's a type of wood, poplar, and these are 4 inch by 3 inch by 8 feet. Those came from the neighbor. And then these outside corner posts, like this one over here, that one there, that one, and that one, those all came from a tree house that had to be taken down from an oak tree down there because it bordered forest property and our property, and my concern was if somebody climbed up in it, got hurt, the Forest Service probably wouldn't get sued, but I'd probably get sued, so it was just best to take it all down. So that's where those posts came from. And then those are pine, so the 4 corners are pine wood, and those are 4 inch by 4 inch by 8 foot. And then there's one piece of oak right here, and that's a 4" by 3" by 8 foot. All of these top boards going across the top of the garden area are the boards from inside the old cabin that was torn down. I mean, I could have gone and bought all new wood, but the plan with taking down the old cabin was to repurpose all the old cabin wood, so that's exactly what we're doing. But the unfortunate part of repurposing old wood is the majority of, well, almost every piece of this wood used for this is twisted or warped. So one of the decisions that has to be made is, do you want to level using a post and pipe level, or do you want to level, well, you can still use a bubble level of some type, but if you stick to this type of level, you will find that when you look down the side, you'll see that your posts don't line up, especially when you're using warped wood. So I somewhat used the bubble levels, but it was better to look down the side to ensure that this edge was lined up as best as possible with the edge of the other board over there. So that's what was done in the majority of the case with any of these posts. This is our stockpile of wood, and it's a combination of cabin wood and deck wood from an old cabin that used to be right up there. The majority of the nails from all the wood has been removed, and it's been covered with tarps for 2 years now. And we knew we wanted to repurpose all of the cabin wood. We just didn't realize that we would find so many projects to use the cabin wood for. So we've done planters, multiple planters of different types, built a lettuce bed, built that composter right there, but it also includes some pallets, and now we're building the garden area with it. So it's slowly going down. Unfortunately, some of this wood, I mean, wood is wood, and in this case, much rather use this than use the big box store wood, because, I mean, in some cases, some of this wood is worse than what you would see in the big box store. This wood will serve its purpose, and it'll be another successful project. The only wood that's possibly treated on this entire garden area, and I mean pressure treated, are the corner posts. The rest of this wood, I'm pretty sure it's not treated in any way, so we're gonna take some Thompson's water seal and seal all this wood up. We bought this 48" or 4 foot tall by 100 foot long horse fence. It's made by Red Brand. I guess the red wire at the top is their identifies it as theirs, and this is the fencing that we're going to use to go all the way around the garden area. This is only 4 feet tall, but because the walls are it's 15 by 15, so that's only 60 feet, so we'll have 40 feet left of, and that we can split in half to do 2-foot strips across the top portion for a total of 6 feet tall. And these are 2" by 4" vertical rectangles in the fencing, and it's a 12.5 gauge wire. This wood is super dry, and it's pretty aged. You can see when you put the stain onto the wood, you don't get much of a chance to spread it, because as soon as you put it down, it's being absorbed. And that's mainly with these top surfaces. I imagine it won't be as bad when doing the sides or the bottom. You probably get a little more spread with the stain than you would with this upper portion. Today is landscape fabric day. So this is a 4-foot wide by 100 feet long landscape fabric, and so that'll go across this way and then overlap, and because it's sloped downhill, this top piece will overlap the next piece going over the top of it since it slopes down. And then we also have these 6-inch landscape staples. Might be a little too long for this, only because I know for a fact there's a ton of rock in here, so may just have to reposition them, but hopefully it's not going to make it painful to put these in. The landscape fabric's in, the landscape staples are in, holding it in place. Then we'll put this cedar mulch over the top of it, and cedar mulch is a natural insect repellent. We got all the landscape fabric in, and it's overlapping going to the downhill side, so everything will roll off and go downhill. All the boards are in around the perimeter, and these boards are really mainly just to keep the mulch inside, so even if it rains it'll stay inside. The boards are not all the same height, higher over here and over here, because the ground is higher, and just to prevent the slope going into the garden area. Added these boards at the very top on this end, and this will be where plants can be hung from the underside here. Now we are putting the hog wire or horse wire. It's gonna have to be stretched across, so I don't want to cut it in any particular spot until I get it stretched across, and then I'll cut it because I don't want to waste any of the wire. And I can't just take the wire and wrap it completely around, just because of the fact that everything is tiered. So because everything's tiered, I can't just go straight across. I'm gonna have to do like section by section as I go. What I'll do on this end is put two 2x4s screwed together to clamp onto it, and then I've got a chain that I will hook up. It's got a little eyelet on it, but I'll hook that up to my tractor, and this isn't going to take too much, so it's not like I'm going to be yanking the heck out of it and having it snap on me. I just want to pull it tight enough so that it's not sagging or anything. And by using these 2x4s screwed together, it'll clamp that fence together and keep it straight so I can get it nailed down. Right now there are 3 walls that are finished. This one and this one. This one's completely done on this side. This one we'll have to have a piece added in on the bottom, and there, and there, and then we'll have to cut it over there because of the door, and then start again to finish that part there. And we went from the top down, and then we'll fit pieces in at the bottom. Pretty sure there'll be enough material to complete all of the walls. We were using the tractor, the backhoe, specifically to stretch the wire or the fencing, but on this downhill slope here, it was really difficult to use the backhoe because I couldn't get it up high enough to pull it straight across. So we ditched the tractor and then went with still using the 2x4 blocks screwed to each other, basically clamping the fencing material, and then we put reversed clamps in here to stretch it out so that we could put staples in the upright posts. We're using both the 3/4 staples and the 1 1/4 staples, and there's a huge difference between the 3/4 inch staples and the 1 1/4 inch staples. If we use just the small ones, probably wouldn't be strong enough to hold the fencing material in place, so we're putting the much larger 1 1/4 staples on the ends on the top and center of this post, and then bottom, top and center of the post down there on that end. So here's where we stand on the garden. The garden is 15 feet by 15 feet. It is completely enclosed. We have a door with 1/2 inch mesh, 1/2 inch, 2 feet wide by 50 feet long. So that's what's on the front of this door. And we got a latch. We got a solid oak handle. Just it was an extra piece laying around of oak. Just thought it would be different to put something on the garden. It's not quite like everything else. Got a chain on the door, basically just to help prevent the door from getting ripped off with the wind. But since the door is not a solid door, the wind's not going to quite catch on it like it would a solid door. But the chain is just to help prevent the door from getting ripped off. Got 3 hinges on it. And there's also this backstop behind the door, just to keep it in line when it's closed. There is a 1.5 by 8 inch by 36 inch piece of wood here at the bottom. And that's just so the bottom of the door stays consistently at the same height versus just having dirt down there, and then over time it wears out and then you end up with a big hole underneath the door. This will help prevent that. It is treated wood, so it should be okay in the ground. The majority of the wood on this garden is treated wood. It's just an older wood, and we did use some Cabot semi-solid oak brown sealer and stain, so all the wood has been stained. We use this hog-wire or horse wire. Brand is Red Barn. The roll was 48 inches wide by 100 feet long, and so we did have to double it up and overlap it, and then cut the wires so that we could rejoin it, and it actually came out pretty good. For the majority of the screws that were used on this project, they were all 2.5 inch or 3.5 inch screws that were used, and that's mainly to attach all of the posts and all of the horizontal boards on the very top. The landscape fabric goes underneath these boards here, and then they're stapled on the back side just to prevent things from growing in through the outside of the garden. Forgot to mention it, but there are 6-inch long landscape staples all over the landscape fabric. Staples are to keep the landscape fabric in place so it doesn't shift all over the place. And we've been walking all over this as we've been working, and it's staying in place pretty good. And unfortunately, there's a lot of rock, so we had to constantly reposition the staples in order to get them into the ground where we wanted them. I'm pretty sure I didn't say this before, but nothing is actually going to be planted in the garden directly in the ground here at all. We have some above ground planters that are 2 by 8, and then there's some bag planters. Those will go on the ground in the garden, but that same wire, the 1/2 inch wire that's on the door, is the same 1/2 inch wire that will go underneath each of the planters, and that's just to prevent voles and moles from coming up underneath and trying to get into the planters. The landscape fabric will be some deterrence, but the 1/2 inch wire directly underneath each of the above ground planters will help prevent animals from crawling up, burrowing from up underneath and getting inside the planters. Planter will go in, the wire will go down, the planter will go in, the planter will get filled with some logs, deteriorating logs and other mulch type material, and then dirt will go on top of that, and then the plants will go inside the planter. And then once the planter's in place, the cedar chips will go in, and this is probably nowhere near enough, but we want probably a 3-inch base of cedar mulch all the way around the garden. Over here, these posts that are on the outside here, right here, running all the way across, because the ground is higher over here, the posts were put up higher on this side, and it's a deterrent to deer that may want to jump over and into the garden. And so what will happen is some plants will get hung along here to hopefully be a deterrent. It may sound funny, but we get deer all the time in our side yard over here, and they jump over one side of the fence, and then for some reason when they get down to this end of the fence, they have a hard time jumping over it, so they plow into it versus over it. If we do have problems with deer getting into the garden, then we may have to come up with another method on this high end, because the ground's pretty low over here on this side. The height of these horizontal boards going all the way around is 6 feet, but on this end it's a lot higher just because the ground is sloped further down on that side, but it's basically 6 feet in height all the way around. Here is where the retaining wall was built, and it wasn't an original thought, and then it was decided that these little spaces in here can also be used to plant plants, and so some landscape fabric will be put in, and then dirt put in, and then plants will also, I think wife wants to put sunflowers in here.